Hello and welcome to the first official episode of Podcast of the Rings, where we're going to review the show, The Rings of Power. I'm with, as always, the expert Tolkien person himself, Alex Mitchell. I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi, and this is Podcast of the Rings.
That's right. All the other episodes before this trial runs. This is the first official podcast episode. The other ones, throw them in the bin.
Well, we do want to welcome a bunch of brand new listeners we've had this week because of what we did do leading up to the show, which was cover some of the main lore that we thought might be pertinent to the show. The first episode was Galadriel and the history of the elves. I'm sorry, it's not Galadriel. Galadriel. And we went to Elrond. We talked about gil-galad. We learned about the Durins. And we even learned about Celebrimbor, who did make a debut right off the bat, which is just so many fun things happened in this first episode. But before you turn this podcast off because you're like, wait, for some weird reason I haven't watched episode 2. Don't worry. We're going to, yes, cover both episode 1 and 2 in this episode of ours, but we're going to treat them separately as though we only watched one first, and then we'll let you know when we're about to get into episode 2 talk, so that if you don't want to listen to it, you can pause it.
If you haven't seen anything, go watch episode 1 now. Come back. Listen to the first half of this. Then watch episode 2 and come back to us. We'll be here waiting for you. We'll be
here. Inert, waiting for that button to press play.
Yeah, we just scream, please play us.
Well, I don't even know if we can scream. We're in a void.
It's a soundless scream.
We're like Sacco from Bo Burnham. In a liminal space between... Please, no.
I don't want to go back.
Yes, sir. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Alex and I, not only did we watch the first 2 episodes together, he watched them on his own. That's how much I think he liked them. I don't know if you saw the news, though, Alex. Elon Musk is claiming that Tolkien would be rolling in his grave.
Well, I don't think that would be physically possible, considering he is a corpse.
Although I will say this. He didn't disparage the show. Well, I mean, he did disparage the show. But he said that the only brave and likable character is Galadriel, which is opposite what the, fragile male...
Is she likable?
Well, there's so much to talk about. But he's saying that the only one that's showing bravery... He said all the men are unlikable, brave, not brave, like cowardly. That's what his... follow-up tweet
has he watched the show?
I don't really know.
Because my opinions are not that.
No,
I differ.
But I just thought it was. I'm not trying to suggest for a second that I agree with him. But what I am saying is, he. If no one saw the second tweet, they'd be like, "Yeah, Elon Musk agrees with us," because. But at the same time, a lot of the people that are decrying this show are mad at Galadriel, and his follow-up is like, actually, Galadriel's pretty great. So I just think it's funny that you can have nuanced opinions in this world, and they don't have to be right. But yeah, he also knew how to provide the Twitter soundbite, too.
As long as your opinions are supported by the show itself and substantive things that you can point to,
I don't even know what that matters,
would say,
Alex. Here's the thing.
I think that's the only thing.
No one's opinion matters. Our opinion on this show doesn't even matter. Those people can have all the opinions that they want, but
don't ruin the illusion.
Okay,
our opinions definitely matter.
But the second you start telling somebody that they're wrong for liking it, that you're not a true fan, this is the same exact stuff that we would butt up against with Star Trek versus Orville people.
Sure,
and. I understand wanting to feel like you're a part of something because you find your like-minded people that don't like the same things you guys don't like, and
Sure.
And then some people just thrive on getting in Twitter fights. And I guess all I mean is, don't like it. That's fine. Shut up.
Hey, we're going to get into it. There's things about the show I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of. There's things I like about the show. But having an actual conversation about the show is what I want to do.
As opposed to just totally tear it down.
You can tear it down. That's fine. If you have things that you know, are actually the show that you're tearing down.
Sure.
And nothing that's like outside of that, your own whatever.
You mean casting actually going to some of the best actors?
Sure.
As opposed to...
Well, that's a conversation that I think is outside of
the purview
do you like
of the show.
Yeah. Do you like the show? That's all I really care about.
That does color people's opinions. 100%. I guess that those is a very circuitous way to say if you're looking for an opportunity to just be in an echo chamber of your bad and mean opinions, you've come to the wrong place. We're going to look at the show with a discerning eye. I'm probably just going to talk about the things I like because I have a little less knowledge about the stuff than Alex does. Watching the show with Alex was an experience unto itself. Watching his face watch it was fascinating.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I will say, you're saying like, well, I don't know as much, so I don't want to point out the things I don't like. Look, I'm very interested in.
Oh, I'm not saying I won't give my opinion.
Yeah, but like, and that's what I would say is
I'm not gonna get pissed about timeline. I might not be like, oh, well, why are they going to, Valhalla?
We're gonna pick up on different things because of
that's all I mean.
Which I'm excited.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification, but I thought I was clear. I guess this is it. I guess we're fighting now. Anyway,
that's the show now.
This is the show. Soapbox check. Intro to what this show is about, check. Intro to us, check. Alex, are you ready?
Yes.
To get into the Rings of Power?
Let's dive in. So, first impressions, I would say, I think the thing that everyone is going to notice right up front is this show looks gorgeous. The most expensive television production in history, $700 million. It shows. The scenery, the costuming, like everything just looks gorgeous. That was the first thing I noticed right off the bat, and was upon rewatches I was noticing different things because on the first watch I was just like, this looks amazing. So I think you can't fault the show for that. Maybe you don't like the aesthetics, but I loved it. I loved how it looks. I think they captured.
Some people online have been like pointing to, oh my god, this her undershirt's just latex or something like that. Like there's a couple corners cut, but it's also, you can't for a second hold a TV show up to a movie, even though the budget is there.
I think it's movie quality.
It is movie quality, but I guess with like those little errors, the amount of time that Peter Jackson put into making sure everything was hand dyed in colors that people could dye themselves, etc.
I didn't notice. I think it looks as good as
people are noticing it. Is my point, and no one would ever think that. And I think on the other side of it, on the other side of that argument, I think these are a great companion to those films. I think they set up that world very well.
I mean, yeah. So comparing it to the Jackson films, like they are definitely purposefully
in the same world.
They're taking some of the visual language of the Peter Jackson films and using it here, which I think is a smart move. And it ties those two together, even though technically they're not necessarily related. But for people who have only been familiar or are only familiar with the Jackson films, I think it's a good way to sort of bring them in, and it's like, oh, this feels kind of familiar. I mean, they got Howard Shore to do the main theme, which is another thing, and the soundtrack by the other stuff by Bear McCreary is also really good. I enjoy it. But yeah, specifically,
is Howard Shore the original?
He's the composer for the Jackson films.
I knew that. I just think you should have clarified for the audience is all.
Sorry, apologies. Yes, Howard Shore was the composer for the
and who's Bear McCreary then? I know.
I don't know his other work, honestly. But he's the composer for this.
Okay, great.
He's the composer for this show. And I don't want to get into episode 2 stuff, but there were specific moments we'll talk about later that I was like, oh, that's like visual language from the Jackson films, especially.
Spoilers, Alex.
Well, I didn't say what it was. We'll get to it. But no, I completely agree, and I think it's a good thing that there's sort of that connective tissue between the Jackson films and this. So let's talk about the opening. We start this show with a prologue with Galadriel VO, just like Fellowship of the Ring, the Peter Jackson film. So we open with Galadriel as a child, and we see her making like a little swan boat and sailing it off and like getting bullied by some other elf kids, which I thought was fun. Not that I'm endorsing bullying, but one thing I thought was cool here, we talking, deep lore connections. There are some moments where they hint at some of the things we talked about in previous episodes, but don't explicitly say because they can't really do that. So this was a cool like allusion to the kinslaying and the burning of the boats by Feanor and company. One of the little elf kids has red hair, and a couple of Feanor's sons did. So I think that was their like little subtle nod to be like, this is a child of Feanor. And then him throwing the rock at the ship is like sort of an allusion to when they destroyed the boats. So that was just a cool deep lore
I saw
thing.
You go, and yeah. I knew there was something to it. What was ticking for me, I was like, I thought the elves didn't fight yet. And so
yeah,
I was more like, what's wrong with these little brats? And so
that was like a PG version of the kinslaying, the rock throwing, right?
and unfortunately, I relate to that little girl.
Oh no.
It reminds me, this is not the same, but it actually might be worse. It actually might be worse, Alex, where I was on the playground at school, and I loved playing in the dirt. I loved it. It was like one of my favorite things. And, you'd have a concrete jungle at school, but then there'd be these little boxes cut out for some of the trees. And in the tree would be a bunch of dirt, whatever. So, me and a couple of friends, if I had any at the time, would play around there. And there was a leaf bug. And it was so cool. And it was the first time anyone had ever seen a leaf bug, or at least I had, because I was like, oh, look, there's a leaf. It's moving. Oh, my God. And so it gets all the kids around to see this leaf bug, which, by the way, is a little overwhelming for me, all this attention.
Yeah, because you're just now at the center of this.
Well, the leaf bug and then me adjacent. And then this kid just decides to step on it.
Oh, no. That kid's terrible.
That kid is terrible.
That kid's a real Feanor.
He's a real Feanor. What a Feanor in the butt.
Well, speaking of trees, we also get to see the two trees in this.
You're doing really well
prologue.
with segues.
They call me the segue master. We see the two trees, and this is. I've seen so many Segway tours gone wrong here.
I'm sure.
It's terrible. So we see the trees, and we get this sort of Morgoth shadow, and the trees die, and they don't show Ungoliant, which again they can't. But there's a lot of things that we're gonna see that they can't show, but kind of nod to. And we also get Finrod, Galadriel's brother, like giving her a little bit of wisdom that will come back later in the episode. But yeah, we also then get to see all these battles of the wars of Beleriand. There was an awesome shot with like a dragon and an eagle just like fighting and then crashing to the ground. That was really cool. Again, like it's movie level visual effects for these combat scenes. They looked amazing. I was blown away.
Let me ask you a question. When she's talking about the dead on the battlefield, which was numerous in losses for the elves, why is the pile of helmets that high? It's like 3 stories high. And like, why are they like climbing the pile to stack them up that tall?
The elves are artists and crafters of beauty, even in their memorials.
Are you seriously?
As grim, I'm just making something up. Even as grim as the memorial is, they're going to meticulously craft this tall tower of helmets. I don't know, it looks cool.
Here's what I will say to that is this show already, and it carries on even into the second episode, which we're not talking about yet, is grandiose. It's a little bigger than life, and it's purposely a little bit bigger than life. It is.
Yeah. It's high fantasy.
It's high fantasy. It is mythology, but also really believable. Some really believable stuff. As far as
in terms of what?
As far as the, I don't know. It's gonna sound so dumb. I don't know. I could believe this stuff happened based on how well done it is.
You're saying you believe elves and dwarves and hobbits are real?
I really do think that there's a part of me that really thinks they're real.
I wish I could believe.
I
wish I could believe like you, Jess.
I've never shared with you the episode that I wrote and auditioned for with, basically did a proof of concept with for Sci-Fi 5, and it was about the third age and the date of the fourth age when it happened, when the third age technically ended. And I just think in one iteration of our life there were elves and dwarves and orcs and fairies. I just think that it was.
It would be a great world.
Would it be
a great world?
I don't know.
Maybe one of the in one of the multiverses. That I think you're right. That actually happened.
How are we gonna know? Cartilage deteriorates. It decays. So we wouldn't know if human frame bones are actually elves.
Well, elves' bodies actually dissipate and they become only spirits.
Well, so then they definitely
that's Tolkien's explanation for why we no longer have elves. All the elves who stayed in Middle Earth, which is where we live, they just faded away and they're spirits.
I think it's better just to say that ears are cartilage.
Nah, yeah, sure. Science, who needs it? But let's go back to the episode here.
We are in the episode. This is the whole thing. We already said we're not doing a blow for blow recap. I don't know if we told the audience that. We're going to do a blow for blow, but we are going to do like things that we noticed, things that we like about the storytelling, and right now we're doing the topical stuff.
The topical stuff. So speaking of hidden creatures in our world, the introduction we get to the Harfoots immediately, like that was one of the things that I was kind of like, how are they gonna fit in here? Am I gonna like the place they have in the Second Age? Because Tolkien didn't really, he said they were around, but they weren't included in any of the tales. The first second we see a Harfoot on screen, I think both of us, he like pops up from the wheat, and he's just this cute little old man, just like, Arr! And I'm like, I instantly love these guys.
You're in, yeah.
Yeah, and like seeing their kind of like, oh, this is like they're nomads, and they hide really well, and they just like instantly set up that camp. I was sold. Like, I like that take on the hobbits. Harfoots, I'm going to call them hobbits because they're hobbits to me, but the Harfoots, I like that different spin on it, right? They're not sort of settled down like we see in the Third Age. They're these wandering people.
I thought it was super clear, like super clever, and I was sold. And they were adorable, and maybe even they didn't even try too hard to be adorable, and they were. And you just like, I think this is why we talked about the Hobbits before. Maybe we didn't talk about it in the podcast, but you and I have talked about the reason the story revolves around the Hobbits is that we can relate to them the best, even though we should be able to relate to the men. But the Hobbits are like what we want to be, the ideal of us to some extent. So in a way, they gave us, even Galadriel is too, we can't be Galadriel if we wanted to be. But the Harfoots give us something to aspire to or to like see ourselves in. And I think they did that pretty well.
Yeah, I think that the place they serve in Lord of the Rings in terms of relatability is just their knowledge of the world, right? They're outside of the major events of the world. So as a reader, we don't know about the world. We haven't read the book yet, if it's our first time reading. So that's kind of why I think we connect with the hobbits in Lord of the Rings. Whereas in this world, and that's, I think, one of the challenges with this show, and where I felt myself the pacing of these first couple episodes, I was wanting it to be a little bit more quick. But it's just like
you could understand why they didn't do it quickly.
Yeah, totally.
I actually thought it was too quick.
Really?
If you're talking about it being filmic, they rush through some of these sentences and they get to the point with some of the dialogue so much with it's so blunt sometimes that I could feel the pressure of TV pacing on it, and I was annoyed.
I guess the thing for me is what I was getting to with sort of the wide world thing is like that we're being introduced to. They have to introduce us to so many characters and all of these different locations. The thing I think they did well was like the sort of the thing Game of Thrones did, like the map zooms. I really liked because even though like I'm a viewer who can have all, I'm familiar with the maps and the world and I have all these places in my head. For someone who doesn't know that stuff, that's a really good thing that I think helps tie it together.
We needed it. I still don't even think most people after the first watch, if you've never known any of these names, know exactly what you're dealing with. But having some general location to orient yourself in the world does help. And those maps are a well-known trope in Tolkien anyway, so we do.
Yeah, it's like when I would read through Lord of the Rings, or especially the Silmarillion, where I'm like less familiar with the maps of Beleriand, for example. You just have the map in the book, and you turn to it, and you're like, hey, while I'm reading a paragraph, I'm gonna flip to the map and like check it out. I also have if you haven't seen the Atlas of Middle-earth, if you ever want to reread Lord of the Rings or those books, I would recommend that because that has tons of great maps in it.
That's interesting.
But yeah, so these episodes, these first couple episodes are introducing us to so many things, especially the first episode. So we also get the men of the Southlands, and these are like, the people who served under Morgoth, or their ancestors did. And one of the things I thought was interesting is that we kind of get this is one of the few places we get like a real timestamp for where in the Second Age are we? Because one of the things we talked about on the previous episodes was they're going to have to condense the Second Age.
Correct.
Right? So with Galadriel, she says her and her company, like they were searching for Sauron and the last traces of the enemy for centuries. So that could be whatever. And then that little... When we get, so Arondir is introduced in the Southlands, who I really dig in his character. He's one of the Watch Wardens. Sindar Elf.
Remind me what that character does in. Did we talk? I know we didn't talk ad nauseum about him in the show, but
Arondir?
Is he a made up character?
Yeah, he is an original character.
He's an original character.
Arondir and Bronwyn, his love interest, are original
brand
characters.
New babies.
Yes,
but
and I'm really digging around
in a world in a town like that, or is it just like elves might okay, got it.
There are like Sylvan. There's Sylvan elves, so they're kind of like the wood elves. But we don't get anything about like elf. This is a completely invented thing, which I really enjoy. Is sort of elves watching over these men who served under the enemy, because that is a thing. There were men who served under Morgoth, but would
the elves have taken it upon themselves to?
I think it makes sense. I think it's a fitting motivation, right? You have gil-galad like establishing himself as the High King, and wanting to, again, for hundreds of years, he's like trying to be like, all right, let's make sure our days of peace are here. That's his whole thing. From what little we don't see that much of him in this first episode, but what we do is he's, basically saying like our days of peace are here, right? So it makes sense that he would be establishing these little outposts all over Middle-earth and sending people there to just, keep watch and make sure the last traces of the enemy are gone. And that would include, keeping these men in line. So I really enjoy that. And we get a sense of the timeline with when Arondir goes into that tavern or the bar or whatever it is, and that little kid or the teenager snaps at him and he says like, those were our ancestors, they died 1,000 years ago. So we know it's like over 1,000 years into the Second Age. So that's like the most we get of the timeline stuff. And I said this when we were watching the episode. I think my favorite character so far is Waldrag, the town butcher
slash mayor.
Like, I mean, he's the one Arondir reports, and he's just like cleaving stuff with his hammer and his
shirtless.
His drip. Oh my god,
okay.
the floppy hat and the.
You're not cool enough to say drip.
Okay, I'm trying. Trying to relate to the youths out there. But just the apron with no shirt. I said to Jess when we were watching this, that's my new cosplay. I've never done cosplay. I'm gonna cosplay as Waldrag. I love him so much.
And so Arondir and what's her name?
Bronwyn.
I will judge her outfit. It's basically a maxi dress with some rope tied around it. She looks hot. She's a little Zoftig, not very Zoftig, but she's a woman. I like her a lot. She's very pretty, and she's just like a little round. She's not round. She just is like soft, but you can also tell she is like muscly. I don't know, but she is wearing a dress that a woman might wear when it's hot outside in Oklahoma.
Relatable.
Yeah.
Especially now.
Yeah, it is a hot day, folks.
It is so hot.
It is so hot. And we are in different parts of the country.
And speaking of hot, I mean, the romantic tension between Arondir and Bronwyn. I love it. I was skeptical of this romance going in. I think I've said that on past episodes. But I think their chemistry is really good, and it makes sense, like the way they've set it up, where it's kind of that almost forbidden romance in a different way than we got with, Beren and Luthien or Turgon and Idril, but we didn't talk about that. Turgon and Idril.
Once we did not, but meaning that, because they even said no elf has been with a human since Beren and Luthien, and look at how good that turned out.
They didn't name drop them because they can't, but they said there have only been 2 pairings in the history. Methros, the companion elf to Arondir, says that, which again, another little cool Easter egg. Like, we can't say exactly what this is, but for those in the know, we're talking about Beren and Luthien and Turgon and Idril.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And speaking of him, I love their banter too.
Hold on.
Where he's like,
best actor on the planet.
Yeah, he was great.
I'm telling you, he's my favorite character.
Did you draw any water? Like the way he delivers that line. I'm like, I love seeing elves, like, because a lot of people think of elves as like the stoic, kind of like what we see with like Gil-galad. But it's fun seeing them just kind of like banter at each other, and it's a little bit of kind of like Legolas Gimli dynamic where they're,
that
quipping.
Guy is the best. He stole the show for me. He is running away with it.
I'm sad we're probably not going to see him again.
Oh, we'll see him again. We will.
You think so?
I will write the creators.
Okay.
I think we're going to see him again. Where have you been, Arondir, these many days? Still drawing water, I see.
Yeah, he's
coming back just for another one-liner.
I hope so. I really hope so.
He was great. He stole the show. He ran away with it. Now, I will say this. I was surprisingly won over by Elrond.
You weren't expecting to like him.
Because
you were saying you didn't like the base, like you thought Robert Arameo, the actor, like you were like, he doesn't
look like an Elrond to me.
Yeah.
I actually, before I knew who was who, I thought the actor playing Gil-galad was supposed to be Elrond, and I was like, he's so old. Why is he playing Elrond? I just wasn't prepared.
I will say, sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're not.
If you're not following Martin Nielsen on Twitter, please go follow him. He just discovered the Rings of Power series. He has tweeted about the Hobbit films. He's a proponent of the Hobbit films, and he said one of the things he didn't like is that Elrond has a hob face. So I think Jess, you're in good company. Go follow Martin Nielsen on Twitter, folks.
However,
and,
Elrond does look like the young version of Arkella Brimbor in this.
I don't see what
You're out
you
of your
see.
mind. It's 100. They are the same person. It's the same person. I think it's weird. I think we're being deep faked. It's weird, but it's also great.
It's a dual role, and they just aged him up digitally.
That's all I'm saying. Oh, no, vice the other way around. I think
they aged him down.
but I was really skeptical, Alex. I'm just gonna be honest, because whatever. What else are we here for except for just to talk about it, however you feel? And I think he won me over.
Yeah, he's probably my favorite character that I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him most. Right. So the conversation that he and Galadriel have when she comes back, and she's just like, they found going back, because I wanted to touch on what they find in their expedition, Galadriel. They find the dark mark of Sauron. And another little thing that I was like, ooh, this is interesting. They find the mark on an anvil. And so I was like, oh, is this going to be this is Sauron tinkering with experiments of the Rings of Power already? Has he already figured this stuff out? But when they come back, Galadriel and company, and the conversations that her and Elrond have, I thought were really great. Sort of the trauma comparing of you haven't seen what I've seen.
It was that was not great. You never compare trauma, but
no, but as far as how that informs their character, because it gives us a little bit of insight. Elrond is kind of this smooth talking politician, which I like that take. But for those who are familiar with his backstory, that they can't do because it's in the Silmarillion, he's been through a lot. His parents died when he was a kid. He was raised by the people who killed his parents. It's dark. So he's seen some stuff, but not as much as Galadriel. She's lived through it all. And just the way, the way they made them, these good friends, right? They've been friends for a long time. So I like that that dynamic. And another Easter egg that I'll point out is in that the second conversation they have after she's basically saying, "Oh, I'm going to refuse the gift from Gil-galad to go into Valinor."
Gil-galad?
Sorry, old habits.
Right? It's Gil-galad, right?
It's Gil-galad. Okay. But I grew up saying
I'm
Gil-galad
just want to make
for
sure
years.
I am smart.
You are correct. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. We see sort of these memorials, these carved figures of the fallen elves from the First Age. And one of them is a little nod to Celegorm and Huan, who we talked about in our Sauron episode. So I thought that was a cool little nod. Why would they have a memorial to him when he kind of did some bad stuff? I mean, he was a son of Feanor, but he did some bad stuff. So that's another thing. But cool little Easter egg.
Hey, life is complicated.
It's very complicated.
So one of the things I can also share people's upsetness over is not enough Finrod. What are you doing showing us this hottie patati Finrod who loves his sister so much and then just kicks it?
I hope we are going to get flashbacks in future episodes.
I think you're right. I think we will probably get some. He's too good looking of an actor to not
right
to not welcome that man back onto your set. And I think there is a little snippet of him talking about a scene that we've yet to see. So
really? Okay.
So I'm sure there's you never have actors don't even know what's been cut out of a thing until it's aired. And I'm sure there's going to be I'm sure there's going to be extended versions of this show too. Probably not actually, but there will be some stuff on the cutting room floor because you just can't. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to tell it all, and that's I guess just another hitch in my sail against people who are really hating on this TV show. It's a TV show, and it does need to be changed up a little bit in order to translate onto the medium unto which it's being told. It's not dissimilar for certain things being morphed in the movies for that same end.
Adaptations necessarily have to change things because they adapt for a different medium. I would recommend the Other Minds and Hands show for talk about adaptation and specifically Tolkien adaptation. People who don't understand that, it's look, you can't just do one for one. And they literally can't because they don't have the rights to all of the story.
Which some people, I think, would argue then don't do it. But I don't think that means don't do it. I think it just means get off your high horse. And then someone else was criticizing, I hate how they're doing it like Game of Thrones, where they're showing us the snippets of each character. And I'm like, that's the hill you want to die on? That they like have to show us many different sides of the story? That's the thing you want to criticize. A very common television trope is something you want to decry. Anyway, I digress. I have a question.
I had one more thing about Finrod.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Before we get to the question.
Okay.
And I'm going to be one of those people who's nitpicking.
Not pretty enough.
One of the things I didn't like, and again, I realized...
Short hair?
No, the short hair is fine. I love the short hair.
Yeah, me too.
He's looking good.
I think the long hair would be distracting on the elves, honestly. So I think
I like the short hair.
Yeah, me too. Carry on.
And like the fade on Arondir too.
I mean, it's looking good.
Yeah, it's great. And
I ship me and him too.
Yeah. I'm sure you're amongst many. There are a lot of people out there who are making some good compilations of just put a very what's the Vaseline filter,
sure,
like old Hollywood, just like because they hired some very good looking actors for this show.
Sure did.
But about Finrod, the good looking, it's interesting how they really changed his character. He in the books he never swore this oath
right
to go and hunt down Sauron, but I get why they did it.
It does dramatize things a little bit more,
and it gives Galadriel a motivation because
what? Go ahead.
Because she takes up her brother's oath, and then that's why she's like so gung-ho on like we have to go to the ends of the earth to hunt down Sauron, which I think was like their way of saying like how do we have conflict with like Galadriel and Gil-galad, because Gil-galad and Elrond, we find at the end of this episode, it's interesting, they're like playing politics, which I think is a cool thing to see, but they're sort of like, all right, I saw a meme of it's like the two people and then the grandma, and they're like, all right, Grandma Galadriel, like go off to Valinor, like because they're the younger elves and Galadriel's like this old elf, and they're like, all right, like your time's up, like get on out of here. We get it, you're obsessed with Sauron, like that was an age ago. It's time for us to settle down now. So it's a change that I'm kind of like, it really changes Finrod's character majorly. But again, he's probably not going to be central to the story, so I can forgive it.
I question how smart of a choice it is to make, though. If you have no motivation to have Galadriel as a main player in this show, forcing it to be someone else's drive and then taking up the mantle is not good.
Yeah.
To begin with.
Yeah.
And like the better choice is just avenge your brother, man.
That's kind of what, and that's what I think is interesting too, is like the scene with her and Elrond is, and he has this great line where he's like, what would you do? Lead more elves to far off lands to die? Like, and if for the people in the know, he's basically saying, do you want to be Feanor version 2? Right? That's what Feanor did. He swore an oath with his sons to go get the Silmarils at any cost, and look what happened.
Right.
And Galadriel was against that. I mean, that's one of the reasons in one of the many versions of Galadriel that she went over there was like to keep an eye on Feanor and like make sure, because she wasn't a fan. So, but again, that's like you have to know that lore from outside. But I like the dig of like, do you want to be? And it'd be so much, I don't know, if they had the rights, it'd be so cool to be like drawing that parallel directly in the show. But they're kind of doing that where it's like he's questioning her motives, and I think it's a legitimate criticism of like, are you actually in this for like the good of Middle Earth and the elves, or do you just want blood, right? Do you just want to avenge your brother? And so I think that's an interesting dynamic in her character.
I don't
certainly
think it's
a different take. It's certainly a different take on it than in the books, because she kind of goes to Middle Earth depending on what version. Again, like she just kind of wants to rule over her own realm and wants power that way, which they're obviously not doing, at least now, right? So I don't know. It's an interesting
but why
motivation for him.
shoehorn something like that? Like I'm beginning to understand maybe why people are like, what why?
Because she has the connection to the first age that no one else does.
Right.
Right.
I understand that.
So it makes sense as an entry point. I think personally, and like who else is gonna, what other character is gonna be the main protagonist?
No,
that's
we
fighting
want
evil,
her to be. We want her. We want her to be. I agree. She obviously, this is set up an arc for this character to learn that, yeah, maybe you didn't go about this the wrong way. But I'm just going to tell you, as someone who studied narrative and studied character development and learning to make bold choices with character wants, wanting what someone else wanted is not a strong choice.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I agree.
Question. Do the hobbits, not the Harfoots, do the hobbits have a history of being able to foretell or prophesize the future?
No.
So then why can the Harfoots?
That was an interesting thing that I'm still not sure about. Is that character of Sadok, I think is his name, or Sardok?
So great. What a great character. Regardless of, him being able to tell of the stars. They it was clearly an almanac, right? And they had
some kind of like seasonal thing,
right?
That they're like, oh, this isn't lining up,
right? Because first of all, I don't know if you ever mentioned moose people before.
Oh yeah, we see moose people,
and they're like two big people, wolves, star, and so like you can see if you have thousands of years of nomadship under your belt and you're keeping details, like you could see patterns, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah,
patterns.
It's not like magical like Elrond.
But there was something there though that kind of was like, no, this is weird. There was something there. I
think he because it's that shared history of like we've seen this over generations, and now he's like, it's not that he can tell the future, it's that he's like, yeah, something's off. And that's when we get. That makes
more sense. Yeah.
He's like, the skies are strange. That's when we get
Anatar Gandalf, the stranger.
Let's crack this nut.
Hold on. Yeah. Okay.
No, do you have something else before we get into that?
Well, I'm just for those that are listening, we're still only talking about episode 1. We are going to be moving to episode 2 shortly. We will be telling you when we do, but I do have a question since we already talked about.
So just to clarify, episode 1, all we see is the meteor streaking across the sky and crashing down. And
so let's not crack the nut yet. Here's my final.
Well, no, I do want to talk. I do have stuff to talk about, specifically episode 1.
Yes, I want to talk about episode 1 too. I have a couple. Okay, I have one more important question about episode 1. So you're saying gil-galad is like, I want peace because that's going to be who I am. I'm the peace guy. We're going to send everyone away. We're going to hold on. We're going to take the elves back from the towns because guess what? A bunch of peace is happening. Sure. I'm declaring it. But they know that that's not true.
Yes, exactly.
Why is he doing that?
I don't know. Like, and
what's
this
the motivation
is what
there?
I don't know because I'm interested to see what his game plan is. He clearly is scheming, and like
he knows.
I don't mean that in a negative sense. But
he knows Sauron's around or something's around.
Clearly, he's not dumb, and he is aware that evil is brewing.
But then recalls everyone. Maybe he's trying to. I just didn't know if it's because we know him from what we've talked about with him. He's not a force of malice, but you bring up a good point that politics doesn't always bring out the best.
Yeah, he's playing the politics game, and who is the biggest threat to his power? It'd be Galadriel. Like she's she goes on to rule her own realm. Like clearly she's a political threat to him. So it makes sense that he would want to, if he's trying to just be the only guy who's a player politically, like, send her off. But what exactly is his game plan? I have no idea. We barely see any of him in this episode, and that all we really get as an insight into him is that little last moment with Elrond. I mean, the other time we see him, he's just giving a speech that Elrond wrote. That's it.
Which is actually really, I thought that was really, I thought that was really great. It was simple, but it was great.
We do, like, the even though he's just saying Elrond's words, so many words are spoken with the glare of him and Galadriel. That's what I'm talking about. Like, he's looking at her like, I know the threat you are to me, and I'm like using my influence to,
get you out.
Yeah. But like the glares they give each other, where he's like, you better listen to me. It's so good. And speaking of Gil-galad, so when we see the meteor, right? This is Galadriel has chosen to go into Valinor, and we get the ship opening, and it's the veil parting as they go. And I thought it was interesting on rewatch. The moment that happens, the moment we see this opening, is when the meteor comes. So are they trying to draw a connection there? Like, not only is this opening for the ship to pass, but also for this other thing to come to Middle-earth. So that, I think... Now, before the show came out, was camp, the stranger is Anatar. There were other people who were, he's Gandalf or a wizard. I think those are the main two theories. So I would say that's a check in the column of wizard Gandalf. But also, another thing that is connected to this is we see Gil-galad pick up that leaf, and it has the evil poison spreading.
Yeah.
That happens at the same time. Is that, again, are they trying to make us connect that in our minds? Like the coming of the stranger is also connected to this, because that would be a check in the maybe Anatar or evil guy column. So they're kind of, I think the creators of the show are purposefully playing with our expectations here, because there are multiple things we'll get more into in episode 2. There are multiple things that could go either way for me. Is he evil or is he good? I think there's evidence for both.
I think it's too soon to tell. I have thoughts.
Yeah. And one final thought about episode 1 is that this is, again, a conflict of kind of what we're seeing the show representing the cosmology of the world as, and then the compared to the canon or the books, is this idea of Gil-galad like giving permission to the elves to go back to Valinor is interesting, because in different versions of Galadriel's story, she either is banned from returning to Middle-earth by the Valar, returning to Valinor by the Valar, because she was like part of this rebellion of the Noldor. And then there are other versions where she refuses, which is more similar to this, where she is called back but refuses. But that happens in the books at the beginning of the Second Age. Or the end of the First Age, more likely, where the Noldor, most of the Noldor basically are forgiven and go back, right? And she's one of the few that choose, or not few, but one of the Noldor that chooses to remain. So it's interesting, this idea of Gil-galad being able to just like give permission. Like, I wonder if it's, he literally has the keys to that veil, right? And he's the only one who can, give elves permission because he's the High King to go there. And if they tried to go on their own, they would just, get lost at sea or not be able to go. Or if it's just because, well, he's the guy who is able to give them passage, right? Like, they wouldn't be able to get boats otherwise. So I'm curious as to that. And then, like, is the world flat at this point is the other question that brings to mind. Is like, because we saw, like, it looked like almost that was a crossing over into, almost another dimension type kind of thing with the veil opening. So I wonder about that.
Because it was, Valinor is not this shut off place that people can't go to.
Well, so there are measures the Valar took to prevent people from coming over, but those were kind of lessened at this point in the Second Age. Like there were the Enchanted Islands and there was other stuff, but it wasn't like what happens at the end of at the sinking of Numenor is when the world is remade.
Right.
Where it's inaccessible unless you know the straight road to get there.
Which
so
technically we're not there yet.
Yes. So that's why this moment I was like kind of looking at the screen like, wait, are they trying to suggest that or are they not? It's
and yet
unclear.
We have not met a Numenorian, right?
No.
That's
not in episode 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was confused. I was like, this guy, he can tell you what's what. I just thought that was weird. But again, a little bit of TV magic. I can understand them creating it being something someone wants,
Yeah. But it just has, I wonder what implications it has for the larger world if that is the case, that he just has the keys to it.
Maybe none.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, I will see you over on the other side of this little music break where we're going to talk about episode 2 of The Rings of Power.
I'm so excited.
Welcome back to the podcast of the Rings, and here we are talking about episode 2 of Rings of Power. Are you ready, Alexander Mitchell?
I am so ready.
Okay, let's go for it.
This episode, I have to say, liked this one much better. I liked episode 1, but this had so much good stuff in it. Right off the bat, first time we get to see that awesome intro with like the sand, kind of the different
sonic
wave patterns or something. We were kind of talking like, is this like a mixture of practical and visual effects?
I don't think they did do visual effects. I think what they did was practical. And the only way they're able to get the shapes to change so quickly, if they didn't just do an amazing job with the settings, is cut between it really quickly.
Yeah.
But it's very well done, I thought.
It looked cool, and we get the kind of representations of the rings and everything.
It does have the vibe of, post 2015 TV, where it's like, look at the mechanics of the thing. Yeah, it's a Discovery ship. Like it definitely has that vibe to it. But I still think they did a good. Yes, I still think they did a good job.
Yeah. All right, where do we start with this episode? I mean, so Galadriel makes a very big decision, and I love that the first shot is just her looking up at the sky, kind of like, what the hell did I just do? And then just like swimming. Just like, all right, I guess this is what I'm doing.
This is who I am now.
And part of me, like, I don't want to sit here and nitpick. But I was just like, what did you think was going to happen, girl? Like, you just think you're going to swim and like, well, we'll see what happens. Like, I get why she didn't want to go to Valinor and why she made the decision to jump off the boat. But I'm like, did you think this was going to end well? You know what I mean? It ends up working out for her.
But this is where I have a hard time with Ex Machina stuff.
Yeah. It's a little like, well, did she jump off the boat because she knew she's the main character?
Yeah.
And
it would be a more dynamic scene.
Right. Because it's like, man, like the likelihood of you finding a shipwreck like she does and just like, oh,
never,
hey, cool.
In a million years. Yeah. In a million years. It
Although
would never happen.
Here's what I will say. One of the themes that Tolkien likes to deal with, fate and someone's doom. So maybe she was like, well, if it's fate for me to die, it's fated. But I'd rather do that than, like, I guess there's justification of, like, she would have been okay just, dying. Rather
there
than
is something to be said for that.
But they didn't really communicate that, I think.
Again, not maybe her want. It's so the motivation is lacking.
Yeah.
She's clearly... So the reason she does it is where we hearken back to Finrod telling her, the only way to know the difference between the light in the actual sky versus the light being reflected in the water is to visit the darkness.
Yeah, touch the darkness.
Which I think is not great advice, young brother.
Right? But go out there, give it a little poke.
Hey, you know what? Gollum, he's a cool dude. You know, like it's basically inviting mischief. But if you extrapolate that meaning a little bit further, you don't need to know trauma in order to know good times and happiness, but it's easier to recognize when things are good once you've experienced them being bad.
Yeah.
And
clearly Galadriel is not ready for good times yet.
Well, and see, that's even a stronger motivation right there, is she needs to know.
Yeah.
She needs to know what drives Sauron. What's that? It's already so much better. As opposed to, I'm going to take up my brother's mantle. Here's the dagger.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit ephemeral. It's a little bit ethereal.
Yeah.
And so
like
it's
you
hard
have to
explain that.
You have to sit down and like do what we're doing and like extrapolate. And like I don't think the show's necessarily
TV doesn't have the time to do that. Film hardly has the time to do it.
Especially a show like this where they have so many characters. And that's, I think, the biggest weakness right now for the show for me is like
should it just have been the Galadriel Elrond show?
No, they can't do that. I mean, here's what I will say: the fact we haven't gotten to Numenor yet, and it's already episode 3 when we're gonna get there. Spoilers for the end of this episode. We're talking about spoilers for episode 2. They see a Numenorean at the end of this episode, we're gonna get Numenor episode 3. That's like almost halfway through the season. So they're taking their time, but at the same time they're taking their time, and also I want more, which is like, I guess I just want all of it. I want all the Tolkien.
Well, I don't even think it's that you want more of Tolkien. I think the story is compelling enough to make us want to know what's going to happen next. So I spoilers. We know that Sauron comes back, and you know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that we know what we're heading towards.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that they're delivering it, I think, is really what's making... I mean, I don't mean to put words in your mouth. Maybe you do just want to watch the pretty elves dance in the glaive.
Not enough elf dancing.
In the glade. Not enough elf dancing, but there definitely was spontaneous elf singing.
Oh my god, we didn't even talk about that. Yeah, elf singing, I loved. I loved the elf choir. That was set up by Elrond too, where he's like, "We hear a song that is in all of us."
Yeah, like everyone's face is ridiculous. It is so.
I love it. It's so Tolkien. I said when we were watching it, I'm like, "This is the most Tolkien stuff ever." I didn't say stuff. This is the most Tolkien stuff ever. Just spontaneous singing. We need more poetry and singing. It's great.
I feel opposite, but I know what you're saying. It just is so cheeseball. But anyway, what I think they've done really well is make us really need to know what they're talking about. Even, this is jumping ahead too, but Durin's hiding something. Celebrimbor's building a tower, but is it because he's going to build the rings? And then, honestly, the Anatar / Gandalf is the most compelling character. I mean, Bree is what is her name? Nori. She's the most compelling character. I think she's our Frodo, if you ask me.
Yes.
I mean, she was purposely cast because she has that baby face.
She has the Elijah Wood ethereal face, and also she is I think it's funny what they did, because in the Lord of the Rings, it's, well, we hobbits just stay in the Shire and never move and whatever. And then it's the Bilbos and the Frodos that are like, we want to go out on an adventure. And, well, here you have a setup where the hobbits go everywhere and they migrate. So how do we do this? Well, we got to stick together is the thing. But then
they can't be seen. They don't want to be seen.
Also, they don't want to be seen. So
that I don't understand. I don't think they gave us the motivation for why that's the case. I think it's... we don't need it, but they didn't give it. Because
they're small people, they want to protect their, they can't, if somebody wanted to come and mess them up, they could, so they got to hide. But yeah, it's definitely I have the wanderlust, the call to adventure, right?
It's like poetry, like you said. George Lucas said.
It rhymes.
It does,
but
though.
I do want to go back.
Because you also have her friend, which is basically Samwise.
It's the Frodo and the Sam of this. Poppy, I think was her name. I don't know. The fact I don't remember the character names, I don't know.
You read the books before you watched the movie.
What do you mean?
Everyone knew Frodo and Sam's name.
Oh yeah, sure. No. Yeah, I'm not comparing to Frodo and Sam. I'm just saying. For me, I guess maybe those characters aren't yet as compelling. But I do want to go back to what you're saying about, like, because I think that is an interesting thing that, like, this kind of show, it's like they're using that idea of, like, the mysteries to drive it. The thing I'm curious about, so we see Elrond get sent at the end of the last episode. He gets sent to Eregion
with his
clone
daddy.
Yeah, clone daddy, Celebrimbor, and we get this amazing moment with Feanor's hammer. Oh,
it's loved that. You loved that.
It's so good. I'm like, yes.
Why did you love it so much? I mean, you loving it made me
it's
love
the lore. Because Celebrimbor's his grandson, and, like, he's making that connection, and he's talking about the Silmarils, like, and we get motivation of Celebrimbor's character, where he's like, he's looking at his grandfather like, oh man, he made the best stuff ever. I got his hammer right here in my office or whatever, wherever they are, and he's like, I just want to make something that's like, people, it's going to change the world, right? Not just for, like, elves to appreciate beauty, because Elrond's like, well, I appreciate your work. He's like, no, I want to do something that's going to change Middle Earth and make it better. So we get this motivation right off the bat with Celebrimbor, which is going to inform his whole character, and they get to connect it to Feanor. Like, I'm like, yes.
I thought that was great too. I agree.
And the line,
we know the ending of Celebrimbor based off of what we talked about in this.
Yes,
so, and you even did a really great job of saying, like, he still has a fate ahead of him.
Oh yeah,
that he tried to escape, but also wanted to bring beauty into the world. And I think you did I think you really did set up that character that I otherwise knew very little about.
Yeah.
For what we experienced. He's a little bit older than I expected him to be, but
well, he's younger than Galadriel,
which is weird.
Yeah.
But
when you've seen the light of the trees, I guess it makes you age slow or appear to age slower. I don't know.
Sure.
But the line he says that I love is such foreshadowing. It's the biggest foreshadow that I'm like, oh yes. He goes, true creation requires sacrifice, and it's like, oh, you're gonna sacrifice so much, buddy.
Oh, buddy.
You're gonna sacrifice so much.
Oh, buddy.
But the thing that I'm interested in is, so he sends. He basically says to Elrond, well, Gil-galad couldn't send me a workforce to build this tower because I want to make this amazing forge, but he sent me you. And then Elrond's like, okay, well, have you thought about working with the dwarves? But the reason he needs this huge workforce is because he says, I need this completed by next spring. And I picked up on this. I'm like, why?
Interesting.
Because elves, we get to see, like in the last episode, Arondir had been stationed there for, 79 years.
100,000 years.
Yeah. To them, elves, that's the blink of an eye. Why does Celebrimbor need this so soon? I'm curious. My theory, not theory, but I wonder, has Anatar already, have we seen him and we don't know it yet? Is he doing stuff? And is Celebrimbor already talking to him? And that's why he's like, we need to rush this.
I thought that was the case, and they set that up in the end of the first episode. He's working on a big project, and I thought that was my initial impression.
Well,
only for now, I was surprised that what he was working on is a tower.
Well, it's a tower to house this forge that presumably he'll use to build the rings. But that's my question is because again, according to the lore we know from the books. He doesn't learn ringcraft or even conceive of that until Anatar. So that leads me to believe, and the fact that he needs this so quick, and it's not just well, I want to do this thing, but it doesn't matter when I get it done; it'll get done because he's an elf.
Cancer.
That's horrible.
And it's his Afghan that he has to make before he dies.
Jesus. Don't endorse that joke. Jesus Christ.
It's okay. That's how my aunt died.
Okay, sure.
7
okay.
unfinished
There you go.
Afghans.
Oh no. Oh no. Seven for the Dwarf Lords.
Yes.
1
of 7.
Yeah, I just like that's what I'm
Worried about?
Wondering is like, has Anatar already been there and is like, yeah, because it's like, why does he need it done so quick? I want to know why he needs it done so quick. It's a mystery. But then Elrond goes to Khazad-dûm with Celebrimbor, and he's like, this is my favorite part of the episode is all the Elrond stuff. So I want to get into that.
Flippin' charming, man.
I know, and like it's perfect casting. Like the fact that they made him this sort of, he's the herald of Gil-galad, but he's basically a diplomat, right? He's going here, and he just knows he fails in some regards. Like he's still young, right, for an elf, right?
Doesn't realize that he's missed a quarter of his dwarven friend's life,
but he's charming as heck, and
super. I'm in love.
Yeah. I gotta watch out. As a friend. Okay, good. That was like one thing that I saw some people talking about, and even like I think you made some comments about like Elrond and Galadriel's chemistry of like, ooh, and it's like, no, they're just friends. It's fine.
Now here's the thing. I get it from like a political standpoint. Not just because she's talking to a man doesn't mean that he has to be a love interest. However, they definitely set up Halbrand to be a love interest. What's his name? Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's 100% like someone that she's like, what's going on here?
It just further goes to show how much of a loser Celeborn is. Not even in the show. His future wife, although in the timeline should be now wife, future wife. She's just busy flirting with this hunky shipwrecked man.
What a cuck.
Yeah.
The problem is you can definitely have a woman who's a friend with a man and not have them be in a relationship. He's such a good actor that he made that plank of wood actually interesting. And I am calling that actress who's playing Galadriel a plank of wood. She's not very good.
The twitch in her face when she was like conflicted.
She's not very good. She's not a great actress. She's an okay actress.
Okay.
She leaves me wanting.
You are more of an expert in the field, so I didn't have a problem with her.
She got cast because she looks like Galadriel.
Okay.
She does have an elven thing, and she's not a bad actress. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying she's not compelling.
She's not as good as Robert Aramayo.
She's not very good. She's just not great. Like there's everyone else is cast around her because they're engaging. She's not very good.
Yeah.
And I welcome the opportunity to be wrong. I will never.
We're only 2 episodes in.
I will never tell that to the actress's face, but she's gorgeous.
Sure.
And
maybe that's why, maybe this is a thing because I don't see the crap. I mean, the performance didn't stand out to me as like, oh, this is horrible. But like, maybe that's why. Did it
stand out to you as compelling?
No, I wasn't.
Then you do know.
Yeah, but maybe that's why I was missing some of those things of like, well, why did she jump off the boat? And then I had to like kind of think about it. Like I wasn't
the camera
getting
shots were doing a lot.
But I wasn't getting that really from the performance. But like going back to Robert Aramayo, like I think he's gonna be the standout. He's my favorite so far. Him and what's his name? Owain Arthur, I think, is the guy who plays Durin. I loved their chemistry.
Beyond amazing, those and his wife.
Yeah,
Durin's wife is
very
amazing.
Very charming.
It's the lighthearted thing that you need to love these characters in order to want to see them go through in order to be able to stomach them going through the hard things.
Yeah.
And they didn't front load us with a lot of grief, which is great, and Galadriel does have an arc to go through. I don't know if I clearly said this in the first part of the podcast, but she's approaching this from a very adolescent grief-stricken.
She's very, and that does fit with, I think, her character. Like she's very proud and prideful, and we're going to see her
get knocked down. That's an arc.
Yeah.
They're building an arc that is good and fascinating. Mm-hmm. Elrond steals the show put a gold wig on him.
He invokes Sigyn. What was it?
The right of.
I wrote this down because what is it? Sigyn Tarag. Yes, was what it was. Which I love. Is
there any history in that?
Nope. But it's great. There is now, and I love it. Where it's literally just rock breaking.
Why do you love it? Oh, I see.
Because it's just great. It's a great little like, oh, what is this? What is this dwarven word? And this is the thing. Like, those are the moments that, like, people talk about. Well, I didn't get the magic of watching the films or reading the books for the first time. But those were the moments where something comes up that I like. To me, feels Tolkien.
Right.
And I don't know what it is, and I'm like, oh, I want to see what this is. Like, it's like the first time reading, Lord of the Rings, and you encounter something, to bring it back to the dwarves, like Gimli talking about his ancestral home of Khazad-dûm. He's naming the mountains, and you're like, what are these words? I got that feeling from this, and seeing Elrond's like that dynamic of him like thinking, oh, yeah, we're old buddies, and then Doran's pissed, and then so Elrond loses, and when they're going up in the elevator, and Elrond's like, what did I do? And seeing the dynamic of, well, for Durin and Elrond, this was both 20 years, but for Elrond, he says like, oh, only 20 years? Really?
Yeah.
That's nothing to him.
Right.
But Durin's like, I've lived a whole life. I love that conflict, and it really shows the difficulties of diplomacy and friendship, like, between these people, because they have a different perspective on the world, right? Elves have a much different view of time and, life and death than the dwarves, but they get through that, and that's also very Tolkien. Like, you kind of get a mini Legolas and Gimli arc almost, where it's like,
it's so delightful.
Yeah.
I think, a question, do you feel like Elrond lost on purpose? I don't think he intended to win.
I don't think he cared either way, because he looks tired.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going for it.
And he broke one of the hammers, and they gave him another one. So I think he was like actually trying. I don't think he was like, oops. I think if the intention,
he must have known he wasn't going to win, though.
Yes.
I don't think he could have either.
No, I don't think
without insulting Durin.
Right, and I don't think that. I think he was just getting a foot in the door, and he knew once he got the foot in the door, he could charm his way into Durin's home. And that, like, when they cut to, all right, well, just your apology, and then you're leaving. Like, Elrond's like, all right, I knew I'd get here, and now I just gotta,
We all knew what was happening. It was adorable.
Yeah, it's great.
And I think the reason why there was some whimsy there with I invoke this right or whatever. What is it again? Say it again.
Tarag.
Is it the right? The right of Sigyn Tarag?
He just says, I invoke Sigyn Tarag.
Okay. Because immediately the doors open, the guys walk him in, and that kind of attention to detail with, okay, this is serious business now.
Well, and also because all the dwarves are like into it, so they're like, oh, this is gonna be a show, right? So I don't even think it is a serious thing, but I think it's also the Dorg are just going like, yeah,
was amazing. Was the way that they reacted to, all right, he's coming in, you're not coming, get in here. There was like some pomp to it. Like, I think that made it an exciting moment.
Yes. Yeah. There were stakes. Immediately, you're like, what is this? Like, what's happening?
It was a very Wizard of Oz moment. That's a horse of a different color.
Yes, exactly. And also, we're glossing over just how beautiful Khazad-dûm is.
We're not glossing over it. We just hadn't gotten there yet.
But all of this is taking place.
We both went,
yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, gorgeous.
I know we said the show looks beautiful, but especially Khazad-dûm looks great.
Right.
And I love like the little mirrors they have, like reflecting the light and stuff. So it's like not a dark cave
and
like
it was
you'd
practical.
Expect. Yeah, exactly. And I love the tree that Durin.
So what is that?
That's just like a tree, a sapling that Elrond gave to Durin, and he's been tending it. Like, that was such a sweet moment. Like, and then when Elrond is like, well, they would be foolish because this could grow anywhere there's love, and clearly this home has love. Like, I think he's a charmer, but here's the thing: is it doesn't come across to me as, oh, he's just using this. Like, he's genuinely a friend of Durin's, and I'm looking forward to seeing that friendship grow. It doesn't seem like he's just got a silver tongue and he's sort of using Durin.
I definitely am not getting that vibe for sure. There is diplomacy. He is offering him something. He's coming for a reason. But that's the world also, too. Who else are you going to want to work with if not your friends?
And I'm interested to see how they deal with the mystery. I mean, I know I'm 95% sure of what it is.
I see.
Would you like me to illuminate you?
Well,
or should we save it for next episode?
I don't know. What's your instinct say?
Well, my instinct says people who are familiar with the source material will know what is in that box.
I think to keep it true to the show, even though we may have talked about it when we did our episode Durin, which I thought was very clever because it was like Duran. I thought it was clever.
It's great.
No one else cared. I think even if you did talk about it there, we should honor that the show hasn't talked about it. I don't know, because then I could also go, well, I think it's this. And I mean,
we know like gil-galad dies, and we've said that.
That's
so
true.
That's
I would say go for it.
So
close your ears, people, if you don't want to know.
Yeah, mute for I don't know the next 30 seconds. It's most likely mithril, because that was the discovery made in Khazad-dûm, and the dwarves were very secretive of that and used it to make.
Why would he have it in a box there then? If they didn't had it in
for cool shot of what's in the box.
Okay, I think that makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah. So that's why like the whole dynamic with the Durins of, well, do you think they knew? No, they didn't know. Like, they're keeping this thing secret because it's this new discovery and it's the place that has it. So
I see. And
in the future they will, according to source material, they work with the elves using this stuff. So we'll see if that happens. But so that's why they're so guarded, and like in addition to Elrond not being there for 20 years, maybe they also wanted to let him in because they're like, well, we want to not have outsiders because we want to keep this new thing we found secret.
Sure, totally. Let's just talk about really quickly the most disgusting thing I've ever seen on television ever, and wonder why.
Theo's haircut. We haven't talked about Theo at all.
Do we need to?
We'll get to Theo, I think.
Who's Theo?
Theo's Bronwyn's kid. Basically, all that's happened with him is like he finds that sword. Episode 1.
And then bleeds on it.
Yeah, and in this episode,
2.
we see it like suck up the blood. I'm thinking he's probably going to maybe become like a Nazgul or something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But he finds like a sword with the mark of Sauron on it. And what
if he is Anatar and doesn't even know it?
Everybody's Anatar. Well, you haven't even said who you legit think is Anatar that you kept saying.
I think Halbrand is Anatar.
Yeah. And you're not alone, because I was like, going through what people were thinking, were saying what they thought about, and you're not alone. Some people think he is. I would hate it if he is. I think it's terrible. But
what does that character do in the appendices? What's his
nothing, because it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Okay, then it's 100% Anatar. Here's why. Just from a foil perspective, for her to be stranded on the boat with someone who, by the way, ditches his friends completely. Yeah. Who they suck.
He's the rogue archetype of chaotic neutral or chaotic good or whatever.
No, you cannot have a redeemable character that didn't try to save friends.
He saved Galadriel. He changed.
Yeah,
people can change.
She's hot. In a blink of an eye.
Maybe it's because they had the moment where they actually started talking and revealed things about themselves, and he was like,
yes, the woman that initially brought Galadriel onto the boat pushed her off very shortly thereafter. So these people suck, and so we're not supposed to be too sad that Anatar left them to die, but definitely he's definitely Anatar.
But I don't know.
He's too pretty.
I think he
chose a fair form.
He's definitely
the wizard
morally
is not
gray.
pretty. He's not morally gray. He's morally bad.
Halbrand?
Yeah,
I
he's bad.
disagree.
He's Anatar.
He might be. I disagree. He's morally bad. He literally said, well, when you're a survivor, you learn to do stuff like that. I don't think that's like, I wanted them to die. Like, he's not evil. He's that classic, like, I'm just looking out for myself, roguish kind of, he's quippy and he's hot.
So I don't know if we've talked about this, you and I, but there's a school of thought when it comes to script writing, scene writing, TV, etc. Even in a novel, in order to have an unlikable character that makes us want to root for them, they need to have a save the cat moment.
Sure.
Yes. Are you familiar with what Save the Cat is? Okay.
He'll have that, I think, in the future.
He needed to have it immediately. The only thing he did, which is Save the Cat-esque, is put Galadriel on the boat.
He saved the ultimate cat, our main character.
You can choose to think about that how you might, audience. But to let those people die, it's not forgivable. And if he's supposed to be a protagonist, he shouldn't have let them. He should have tried to save them.
I 100% disagree, because as you said, they established them as these people are not good. They were willing to let Galadriel die, right? They barely gave her water. Immediately when they saw she was an elf, they were like, we're done. And Hallbrand kind of gave her a look of like, oh, sorry. Like, he didn't immediately have that prejudice. Like, he was the only one on the shipwreck that was like, you kind of were like, oh. And he didn't like kill those people. He just was in self-preservation mode when a giant monster attacked and separated his little thing from the ship so he could survive. What's he going to do? Be like, everybody get on this little thing? No, then you have a Titanic situation where there's not enough room for Jack, and then he saves Galadriel when he has a chance to save someone. So I am not like, rooting for him. Like, yeah, I love this guy, but I'm not like, he's reprehensible.
He's not a real person. He's an avatar.
Okay. Agree to disagree. I hope he's not. He might be.
Let's move on.
Sure.
I think that I want to know so badly what's going on with the stranger.
Let's get into it. Okay.
So, well, hold on, wait.
Yeah.
Before we do, we're talking about the disgusting scene.
Oh, yeah, because
the orcs are starting to take over that area.
The Southlands, yes, which will become Mordor.
Which is, and he's now. Wait, is Halbrand a Númenorian?
No, he's from the Southlands.
Who's the Númenorian that you said we met?
At the very end of the episode, when they go through the storm, and then we see backlit.
Ah, yeah. Yes, got it. Because they're at the port. I got it. And Galadriel's like, oh no. She goes back to bed.
Yep.
Thank you. I forgot. So again, at the same time, gil-galad sends everyone away.
Yes.
Here come these orcs.
Yes.
What, and the poisoning of the grass, all those things, like these little
evil is coming from the east. Yeah.
What is there some sort of tie to the stories?
Yeah. Sauron fled to the east when the
and why are the orcs pushing that way?
Because they're taking territory. Sauron is reemerging.
I see.
So they're coming in, and eventually they will take over Mordor, where the Southlands are. And
the orcs basically swallowed our pretty elf friend. You didn't see when he's underground trying to follow the trail? Oh, yeah. Well, was that orcs? Was that orc hands? I don't know what. I thought they were like, it kind of looked like some other kind of monster. Yeah. It could have been roots. It could have been like ent roots. But it was very nefarious. And I don't. And yeah, I don't know if they're going to make that a monster, but they left us on a big cliffhanger with Arondir, and I'm worried because I'm rooting for him. I him. I think he's dead. I think he's suffocated. They covered his mouth. Yep, he's done. There's nothing he can do. That's it. Yeah. They create a whole character just to kill him. And he didn't even get to kiss Bronwyn. I was like, okay, in that moment, can we talk about that? Yes. Why didn't he kiss her? He's an idiot. Why didn't he kiss her? He said he loves her in all but words. He didn't say that. He said, I've told you how I feel in all but words. But there were like two moments. Oh, my favorite. Okay, I think it was an episode. No, it was in this episode where
Or no, it's episode 1 with the cow milk thing. Yeah. Yeah, that you're talking about, where the black ichor comes out.
Stop! We all know.
Okay, I just making sure. But when they're having that moment where he says that, and then Theo's like, "There's a man here for you," and I wanted to be like, "Yeah, he's right in front of you, and kiss him now. He's here for you." But so they go to
I didn't know that you were such a shipper like me. I'm really happy about this.
Well, I think their chemistry's great, and like they immediately. Like they're in it, we're episode 1 and he's like, I love you, basically. And yeah, just freaking kiss her, man. You're about to maybe go off to your death.
Is it possible that he didn't because the fate for an elf and a human is bad?
Maybe he's got Maethros's words in his mind. And he's like,
but I will Maethros. Oh, Maethros. He's the best.
Yeah, I love him.
I think they're definitely making us want that character to want to kiss her.
Oh, yeah. They're
but it's working.
They're building the suspense, the anticipation.
It's working. They're edging us.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so they find that tunnel, and then Bronwyn goes back, and she goes back to warn her people, and we get the awesome horror scene of the orc coming up through the tunnel. And I love this because they really set up that orcs you don't mess with them. Like, they are bad MFers. And I think it's cool because, like, we got used to, or I think people got used to in, the Lord of the Rings films, like, orcs are just cannon fodder. You see the Fellowship cutting through them and they're nothing.
Yes.
Right? Aragorn fights off a horde of them on, Amon Hen, and it's nothing.
But it's Aragorn.
Well, yeah, but it's Aragorn. But also, it's orcs of the Third Age. And these are not the same orcs. So there is this idea in Tolkien, like even the elves kind of like diminish over time. So why would the orcs not, right? These are probably more elite orcs, right? They're more directly related to the OG orcs made by Morgoth. So I think they're a little beefier is kind of what they're setting up. And also just, yeah, it's, it's a kid and a human. So they're not going to just immediately take care of an elf. Although they do get the better of him. This orc that comes up, very creepy with like claw-like fingers. He's got a little chin beard.
But they spent good time trying to best him too. You know, like they also got lucky. Again, a little ex machina. Oh, good, he's stuck on the step.
Yeah,
like. But they fought. It wasn't an easy fight.
No, but and then she cuts his head off, and I love the cut too, just plopping it on the table.
Yes, such a good cut.
And Waldreg's like, oh, I got to take this seriously now. Let me put my apron on. Hold on. Yeah, so then they go, and that's when we see Theo with the blade as he's getting ready to leave, and he's been cut from the orc, and it like, and the blade scene, like, it reminds me of, again, links to the Peter Jackson films, the Morgul blade kind of disintegrating.
I'm an idiot. Because when I saw it for the first time, his, what is it? Not a halberd. The handle.
Hilt.
What is the handle? The hilt. When I saw the hilt, I was like, and I forgot. No, this is not that. It's not that blade. This is 100 years before.
I mean, it might be one of those blades. Who knows? We don't know. It could be a Morgul blade.
It's not. It's okay.
Like I'm just saying. Like I'm curious.
I thought it was
too.
a Isildur's. I thought it was Isildur's dad's blade. Is my point, or Isildur's blade. I when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, it's that blade! It's that blade!" And I was like, "No, it's not." That hasn't happened yet.
I got you. Okay, I thought you meant you thought it was a Morgul blade.
No.
Okay.
But that's what to your point, that they did a great job in like kind of going, here's a little bit of visual something.
Yeah. So I'm curious as to what exactly the sword is. Like, was this my best guess right now is we saw the mark on the anvil in episode 1. So was this like a sword made in I didn't say, so Autumno was the fortress they like go to in episode 1. Was this a blade made in the ruins of Autumno by Sauron? Who knows? But
I think it's probably Sauron's blade.
Clearly it's got his mark on it, so he probably made it. Yeah.
Like the blood aspect of it really I don't think he's making swords for orcs that reconstitute with blood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a power draw somewhere. There could be a world where Anatar is in the blade, because we know that he lived in the ring, and the more blood that reconstitutes the blade, the closer we are to getting Anatar.
That if they did that, that would be a major change.
Like they haven't already majorly changed things.
Not that much. Because that's like you're introducing a whole new, like, he invested his power in this blade then and before the ring, like, and then like that I think that would be. I mean, I'm not saying they couldn't do it. I would not like that if they did. That would be too much for me. You can make some changes and adaptations, but that's a bridge too far.
I have a feeling then the second the blade's done reconstituting, we'll be standing in front of Anatar.
I think it's just gonna. I think it's just more of a. This is going to consume Theo.
Sure.
I mean, that's so like when he found the blade, right? He brings it back home with him. And then when he hears, like, before the orc attack, he's like, mice. And he, like, starts hitting the floorboards and smashing a hole. I think this blade is going to affect Theo's mindset and mood and start to corrupt him is more what it's going to be.
Because the first thing I said, I was like, yeah, dude, that's how you deal with mice, is destroy the floorboard of your house.
Yeah, he just really hates those mice.
And he's a teenager, to be fair.
Yeah, teenage angst. He doesn't have a dad, that's going to get you. And then, like, he gets teased by people because his mom likes the elves.
Right,
It's a lot. It's a lot for a kid to go through. I can relate. The other connection to the Peter Jackson films I wanted to bring up, in addition to this Morgul Blade connection, was going back a little bit in Khazad-dûm, like some of those camera angles with the dwarves, like on their faces, very Peter Jackson,
very up from up.
Yeah,
I mean,
the kind of Dutch angle thing.
It's not surprising because it's meant to make them look like they're shorter by doing that.
Yeah. And we got great shots of their ears. I don't know what the dwarves had going on with a lot of them had weird ear things. I guess that's a part of dwarven culture. I don't know, like either gold ears or like
cuffs or something.
Yeah, it was cool.
And their noses seem to be really prominent.
Well, yeah, big old hairy nostrils.
No, like like they made like potato noses of these.
Oh people. Yeah. I mean, that's what dwarves look like.
No, I'm just saying it was very great magic. Yeah. So, as we get to the end of our podcast, we're going to talk a little bit. I think we should round it out.
Well, we haven't even talked about the stranger.
About the stranger. That's what I'm saying. The last thing is we have to talk about is the stranger. Because this, just for those of you that have made it this far, this is going to be the longest episode that we do. Because we decided to do both of them.
Yeah. 2 for 1.
So I'm trying to keep us on time a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The stranger.
So we touched in part 1 on who is the stranger, right? That's what everyone wants to know. It's this mystery. And I think there's Camp Wizard / Gandalf. And then there's Camp Anatar or evil. Some people have said maybe Balrog. I don't know if I buy that. Evil thing of some sort, probably. Maybe Anatar. So with the stranger here, we get more of, so Nori and Co, like, they want to help him out because she's like, I feel obligated to, I guess. I don't know. So she's kind of keeping him secret. And when they find him in the crater, you picked up on this when we first watched it, where she falls in, and what did she say, Jess? Do you remember?
The fire's not hot.
Yes. And where did we hear that before?
In Sauron's ice dungeon lair.
Yes, when the expedition goes to...
I have no heat from
my... Yeah.
And he literally is running his hand through the flame.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, that's because there's too much evil here, or something like that.
Yeah.
So
the torches give off no warmth.
I think that was, again, I do think you're totally right. Like, at one moment, this guy's magical, and at the other moment, he's very scary and very mean. The flame isn't hot, so it's not nefarious, but we've already been told what happens that flames cannot be hot.
So that's where I go, like, how much of this is them messing with us and wanting us to think these things are connected, and how much of it is maybe they're just not, right? Like, but it's a connection you can make. It's evidence for this guy's evil. So evil he's making fire not hot. However, you then also have when he like kind of comes up and like the trees bend and he gets all dark. That's very like Gandalf uncloaked in Fellowship of the Ring, when he is like, I'm
trying to help you.
I'm not a peddler of cheap tricks, etc. Very Gandalf in terms of imagery. You also have the connection of like he doesn't know what his name is when Gandalf is reincarnated as Gandalf the White, when he takes a new physical form.
Ah, yes, they did call me that.
Yeah. So very, okay, is this a Maiar? That could be an argument for, I think, Gandalf or just a wizard.
A wizard. But again, blue eyes, some, Gandalf looking things.
He does not look dissimilar to Ian McKellen.
Right. I think Ian McKellen would take that as an insult.
Sure.
But there's some similarities.
Yeah. I personally...
He's also... The cloak... The blanket she gives him is a little gray.
Is it?
I don't know.
I would say that more maybe then you could be like, he's Radagast the Brown, because he's got the brown wool. Sure. And he also speaks to the fireflies from the Firefly Lanterns, which is very Gandalf, like, when he's sending them off. Yeah.
But then they die.
So is this like he hasn't quite gotten a grip on his powers? I mean, that's what it seems like to me. And then there's also the thing when Nori is there, and then her dad, we didn't talk about this, the cringe look away, he breaks his ankle. But when he's drawing in the dirt and he's saying Ue Mana, they again link this cinematically when he breaks the thing he's writing with, is when the ankle snaps. So I don't know if that's like artistic, or are they trying to make us think like he's having an effect that he can't control on the world around him? So I noticed that. And then he's saying Ue Mana, which is what is fire in Elvish. I looked this up because I was like, I need to know everything I can about the stranger, and I don't speak Elvish. So he's saying what is or Ure, sorry, not Ue. Ure, Mana Ure, which is what is fire. So I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know.
What does that mean? What if you just looked up an elf word? It's like, I'll just say this one over and over again.
Right. He also...
Ure Mana, Ure Mana.
Yeah, he has a penchant for eating snails whole. Clearly, that's an Anatar trait.
Ugh.
Crunch, crunch, crunch.
Lot of triggering items in this show.
Yeah. If you're not a fan of... Well, you're a vegan, so...
No, not even that. I think I told you, but stepping on a snail once or twice in my life has taught me enough to know I never want to do that again. Yeah. It is the worst. It is the worst.
And then Nori just like pops it in, and the little goopy.
Gross. Stop talking. Okay. Why are you doing this?
We're just recapping what the events that happened.
Anyway, I think this is it.
But we get this idea of him. He draws the constellation with the firefly. So he's looking for some kind of constellation. Now, this to me means like this would be wizard evidence, because that would mean he's looking to go a specific way or find a specific place, which means he's on a mission. And my hope is Blue Wizard, because we haven't seen them ever in anything adaptation-wise. And it would be cool. They could do whatever they want. There's textual evidence for maybe the Blue Wizard's coming over earlier than the other wizards in one version. So that actually, it does kind of fit in there. Whereas if it is Gandalf, it changes a lot about his character. And I don't think the change of making him come over this early is justified in terms of how much that would like change his character dramatically versus what you get out of it. Because you could just make it a blue wizard and still have a Maiar and a wizard. So we'll see what they end up doing. But they are dropping these Gandalf sort of visual clues, if you're familiar with the Peter Jackson films. But my hope is Blue Wizard and this constellation thing. He's trying to go where his mission is, and
because they're all stationed places.
Yeah, they all have their own tasks. And the Blue Wizards were like sent east and
then
south.
How would that relate to him being able to get into Middle Earth as the Valinor door opens up?
Well, because the Maiar, the Istari specifically, the wizards, were Maiar, and they were sent from. They lived in Valinor before they came to Middle Earth.
That's my point.
Yeah. So, that's how it connects. Is that doorway opening conveniently? It's like, oh, you know what? While this is opening for the ship to come through, let's just boop, Istari, fling them over.
So, anything else you want to talk about? Anything you're looking forward to in the next episode?
Oh, next episode, all Numenor all the time, baby. I think it's gonna be so much Numenor next episode. It's gonna be chocked full of it because we get that little tease, chocked full of Numenor.
Chock full.
Yeah. I'm excited for Numenor. I am excited to just see how they introduce us, and yeah, because it's a huge story in the Second Age, and we haven't seen anything about Numenor. It hasn't even been mentioned. Not once. They haven't even said Numenor. They haven't even said Numa. Not even 2 syllables. So this next episode, I think
they're like, shh, shh.
Oh, not yet. Wait.
Shh, don't kiss her.
So yeah, next episode, so much Numenor. Hopefully, and more. Honestly, I also want just more gil-galad because, I feel like we don't know that much about him besides a little bit of his motivations. I'd like to see a little bit more of him, and just give me Elrond, Durin bromance. Come on, they're the best. I just want more
adorable.
of that. It's so good.
It's adorable.
What about you? What are you looking forward to seeing more of?
Yeah, I want to see Nori,
yeah.
Nori, I think she's adorable. I really want to see. I want to see what happens with that storyline. I'm really fascinated by it. I can't wait to dance on your grave when we find out that Halbrand is Anatar.
Oh my god, it's gonna happen next episode.
And and I too want more Elrond. He's super charming, super charming.
We're
super charming.
Arameo stands over here.
I'm into it. Alex, I'm already enjoying this foray of our journey together.
So much fun.
And I look forward to watching the next few episodes with you and our audience.
I am so excited.
If we screwed something up, if you disagree with us, if you liked everything we said, tell us. Go to our Pod of the Rings Twitter to let us know. There's an email address. What's the email address, Alex?
podcastoftherings@gmail.com.
And you can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. You know that. We also have a Patreon, so you can check that out in the liner notes. You can be the one ring to rule them all person if you want, or you can just get early access to our episodes that are supposed to drop on Tuesday. If we can get them to you earlier, then you'll get them sooner than everybody else. Alex, thank you for all your lore knowledge.
Yeah, I'm glad to give my insights, and it's always fun talking about this stuff with you.
Aw, that's sweet. Well, until we meet again.
May our roads meet again.
There it is. Bye.
Dun, 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 dun.